Hey everybody, it's Craig from the Electric Church here to do another comic book review for you. It is the first Sunday in February 2020. I bought these books over a month ago. I apologize for the delay on reviewing them. So most of these books are probably on a second printing. Sorry. Alright, first up we have Unsacred, #1 from Ablaze Studios. This was interesting. It was actually originally printed in Italy in 2018 and is now being released in the United States. This book has some great cartoony style, classic artwork, which I found enjoyable. Didn't care much for the story though. Interesting concept. A demon and an angel meet as children, meet later as teenagers, and are now in their 20-somethings and are in this odd romantic relationship. I don't know. It was weird. It jumped all over the place. I don't know. I just didn't care for this very much. I thought I would enjoy it. It obviously looked sexy and fun. Nah, it really fell flat for me, which I was disappointed with, honestly. When I was reading the publisher's info and I read that this was originally created and published in Italy, I was like, ooh, cool. Italian comics, awesome. But it just fell flat. You can probably skip this guy. There was a ton of different covers for it, so there'll probably be some collectability to it, but it was printed kind of cheaply. The paper isn't all that great, and in my copy, the center staples had severed the paper, so my center page is loose and liable to fall out and missing. So some collectability aspect to this book perhaps, but you're probably going to have to find one that is actually in good condition, because the printing seems to be a little cheap, and they're probably at like an 8.5 on the shelf. Yeah, disappointing for sure. Alright, but on to the good stuff. 20XX from Image Comics. This is issue #2. I apologize that, again, I got this like a month ago. Sorry I haven't reviewed it before. Boy, her face looks really weird when you tilt it back a little bit. As with the first issue, really, really great black and white art, focusing on realism. Love the story. Initially, I was a little skeptic, I liked the dialogue, I liked the art, but the story felt a little old hat in this, mysterious illness destroying the earth thing. Been there, done that. Thought it was old hat. Wasn't so sure I was going to continue with the series, but issue 2 was great. They really used the illness just sort of as a premise for a larger underlying story. Obviously, I guess, but point being, it's just sort of a plot device. It's not really an integral part of the plot. So I don't want to spoil this book and really give away much of what's inside it, except I will tell you there's a ton of dialogue. There's a couple pages on here that I think had more dialogue on a single page than most Marvel comics have in the entire comic book. Good story. I think this could have just as easily been made a novel or something. And if the story continues to be this strong and visually appealing, I would imagine that this book is going to go far and do well. And I would be very surprised if this doesn't turn into a TV property, or some sort of streaming service will turn it into some sort of show. Comic books are big right now. Image, I don't know if anybody out there listening to this knows this, but Image doesn't own any of the property that they publish. It's all creator-owned stuff. So Marvel, DC, they own Superman, Batman, the X-Men. Those are all owned by the comic book companies, and the rights to turn those into TV shows or movies, those rights then fall to the publisher who owns the property. But Image specifically branched out in the 90s to get away from the publishers owning anything that they created, and they made Image Comics. I'm not going to go through the whole history. There's actually a great documentary on Pluto TV called The Image Revolution, I believe. But needless to say, some of the best artists in the industry left Marvel in the 90s and formed Image Comics. And they did that specifically because they knew if they created new characters, those characters would be the property of Marvel and DC. And so they decided that they wanted to have control of the characters and what happens to them. They formed Image Comics. The rest is history. So anything being published by Image Comics, it's owned by the creator of that and not Image Comics. So Walking Dead, Robert Kirkman, he owns that property. He was able to bring it and get it developed into a TV show without having to consult with Image whatsoever because he owned the property. I don't know why I'm explaining all this about Image Comics, because I'm supposed to be reviewing 20XX. Great art, lots of dialogue, really good story. I'm thoroughly enjoying this book, and I highly recommend you pick it up and, pick it up and take care of it. I think this property is going to go places to TV. That's where my rant went. So anyways, as always, stop by your local comic shop. Support them. Buy back issues. Support your local restaurant. Support your local movie theater. Support all your locally owned businesses, because family-owned businesses are the bread and butter of this country. Okay? Thank you for listening to my soapbox about locally small-owned family businesses. And as always, thank you for watching this comic book review. And please tune into the Electric Church podcast. We'll see you again.